What's up, everyone? Today I want to go ahead and talk about arthritis. We get a lot of patients in our office and they just have a lot of wear and tear on their body. There's a lot of wear and tear on their joints, and a lot of times people come in with diagnosis already coming in, and a lot of times people will hear diagnosis, things like osteoarthritis, things like degenerative arthritis, or just plain arthritis. So what does that actually mean? So arthritis means, basically there's two meanings really. One is artho means joint, and then itis means inflammation. And so arthritis together means inflammation within the joint. And so I want to go ahead and talk about that and explain a little bit about what that means and really what does that mean in terms of you. So let's talk about this. All right, so I have my spine model here, and really when it comes down to it, there's 24 movable joints within your spine, and oftentimes these joints, they're meant to move back and forth. So this is why you can twist, this is why you can bend, extend back, and just rotate, just because these joints are meant to move and twist and really help to provide that movement. That's why you have muscles that attach to the spine to help to move your body. But then also the main reason for the spine is to protect the sensitive tissues of the nerve, as well as the spinal cord that goes from your brain down all the way into the rest of your body here. So really I want to go ahead and break down some of the components of the spine, and then we'll go ahead and talk about arthritis and what that actually means. All right, so I have my individual model here. Now you're going to start to notice in regards to this model here is you're going to start to really understand some of the pieces to what actually makes a vertebra. So each one of these things is a vertebra here, and you have a vertebra here, and then you have a disc in between, so it acts almost like a sandwich here. Now you'll notice that the spinal cord comes from the top and it goes through the spine, and then it comes out these nerves and it goes to every single cell, tissue, and then organ in the body. That's why you can wiggle your fingers, that's why you can wiggle your toes, that's why you can digest your food after you eat some lunch or whatever. And so what happens is this, is these joints are so actually allowing movement within the body, and it helps to create space for those nerves. And so these joints are able to move back and forth, you're able to twist and move, and this is what a healthy spine segment actually looks like. Let me go and talk to you about what degeneration actually does. All right, so what we do have is some different phases of degeneration. So this is what we consider phase one of degeneration, where you're going to start to see that that disc starts to get smaller here. Now I have different models. This is the normal model. This is the phase one of degeneration or arthritis. Now the difference is you'll start to notice is that the disc here actually is a lot thicker on the normal one, and the disc here starts to thin out in what we actually call dehydration of the joint. Now what it actually does is you actually have the nucleus, which is, if you think about it, kind of like a jelly-like donut, where you actually have the jelly in the middle and then you have the donut around it, and it's trying to keep the nucleus into the center. And so you almost have like a pivot joint in terms of the nucleus. It actually helps to act like a fulcrum for that joint to move back and forth. Now what happens is you start to tear and damage those annular fibers around the disc or the nucleus, and as those joints tear, you're going to start to notice that that nucleus will start to push towards the area of weakest resistance, and that's where you start to get things like disc herniations and disc bulges. But for our purposes, that's not what we're talking about today, but really want to talk about arthritis and degeneration, because arthritis and degeneration typically come from, one, wear and tear. You damage those tissues, and what actually happens is when you damage those tissues, you get an injury to that joint. Usually you'll get a subluxation or a misalignment of the spine, where that joint will shift back, and as it shifts back, it will twist and move, and it'll get stuck in one position here. Now when that joint doesn't move, what happens are the joints above it and the joints below overcompensate, which is why you can still move and do whatever you have to do, but that individual segment of the spine will actually become fixated. Now the problem with that is that your joints and the disc don't actually have direct blood supply to them. So what they actually require is movement, and movement is actually what brings in nutrients, and it also helps to flush out the toxins out of the disc as well. So this is what we call imbibition, and this is something that chiropractors and spine doctors, we really talk about, because this is what helps to maintain the health of your spine. This is why we say sitting to your spine is like sugar to your teeth. It actually wears it out quicker because your joints need movement. So that's why getting up and walking for half an hour, 45 minutes every single day, that's going to really help to not just keep your body physically fit, but it's going to actually help to keep your joints and your spine especially nice and healthy as well. And so what happens is when that individual joint segment actually wears out, It's because that joint's no longer getting the nutrients that it needs, and so it dehydrates and all the toxins are not flushing out. And so the toxins will break down and basically degenerate that joint. And so this is what phase 2 looks like of degeneration. You're going to see a lot more wear and tear. You're going to start to see bone spurs within the joint. It's because there's a lot more instability that's occurring here. Now you'll notice on the top of this, the wear and tear is actually tearing those fibers, and basically the nucleus will start to push towards the area of weakest resistance, and again, that's where we start to get what the disc herniations look like, or the disc bulges, and we'll make another video about that. But I want to specifically talk about degeneration or arthritis. Now you can imagine when you get a lot of damage to that joint, you're going to get inflammation, you're going to get pain, you're going to get swelling, and this is what we deal with, especially as chiropractors, is we look for those areas of inflammation within the joint. Now this is why in our office we use instrumentation to be able to scan your spine, to be able to measure and identify where those levels of increased heat or inflammation are coming from the spine and from the skin. And this is the areas that we target in terms of our adjustments, because where there's inflammation, that's where you're going to start to find that there's irritation to that nerve, and that's going to lead to a lot of the aches and pains and dysfunctions within the body. And so this is why we scan your spine each time you come into the office. We pull up your x-rays because we are looking to see where are those wear and tears of the joints. So those are the ones that we're going to start to focus on and see what's going on with that. But then also we are looking for fixations of that joint as well. And oftentimes when you start to have inflammation, we push onto that spine. We're pushing onto this part of your spine, and this is where you start to get the pain and the tenderness. And this is why so many times when we scan people, we look at their x-rays and we start to poke on their spine, they're like, whoa, that's really painful. It's because we're looking at very specific parts of your body. We're looking at very specific joints because we're looking at the problem areas and locating the root cause of the problem, and not just generalized manipulation. We're looking very specific and very targeted at your spine here. Now the worst case scenario, you're going to start getting into phase 3 of degeneration, and you'll see here that the longer it is, the worse it's going to get, and you'll start to see really there's no more disc space. It's almost like bone on bone. There might be a point where you might need some surgery just because you're going to start to get stenosis, which stenosis just means where that space where that nerve comes out of, it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller because the disc is no longer cushioning to create space for that nerve. And then also the bones are becoming more instability, so those bony growths around the spine, they'll start to close in on that nerve as well. You'll also know on the spinal cord you can get central canal stenosis, and that's where that spinal cord gets smaller because of the space around it gets smaller, and so you're starting to really enclose the nervous system, and that's where you start to get more severe symptoms and more severe issues. And this is one of the biggest reasons why x-rays are a crucial part to our analysis, because we want to see the health of the spine as well as the alignment, so we know how to correct it and what joints we're going to start to target. So that's really when it comes down to it, is when someone says, oh, they said I have arthritis or osteoarthritis or degeneration. That's really what we're talking about, is that the joints specifically in parts of your spine are wearing out, and it's because of lack of movement. And sometimes it actually could be the opposite. It could be hypermobility, and arthritis can come in when those joints are overworking and there's instability, and then that's where you start to get what's called bone spurs or osteophytes, because they're compensating for that over movement or that increase in movement. And so there's so many different things that we're looking at when it comes to your spine, when it comes to your nerve scan, when it comes to your x-rays, is we're trying to get all this information together so we can start to target those specific areas of your spine that are the actual problem. And so I hope that helped you guys. Really, when it comes down to it, I want to just break it down into a nutshell. Arthro means joint, itis means inflammation. So when someone says you have osteoarthritis, osteo means bone, and so you have arthritis and inflammation within the joint and within the bones, and that's really what you're starting to see, is a lot of the inflammation, the pain, the swelling, the discomfort. That's what we're looking for, and that's what we're dealing with. So I hope that helped you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave the comments down below. We'd love to answer any questions that you may have, but I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Click that like button, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you on the next video. God bless. Catch you later. Peace.